Hi and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to get rid of books because I desperately need to. I've only done one Unhaul video earlier and I felt like I was chickening out a bit because I didn't get rid of all the books I should have gotten rid of. But after this video I may feel that I'm never going to make another video like this again. Surely time will only tell, but I'm getting rid of a lot of books in my view today. There are two main reasons for this. The first one being, of course, that I don't have that much space and someone else could read these books if they want to instead of me. Also, I would like to look at my shelves and think, I know what these books are about and I want to read them at some point, which is not the current situation. I think we'll just jump straight in and I'll talk very briefly about these books because this video can't go on forever, so that's why. And the first books are books by a Norwegian author called Oscar Bråten. These two books are not translated to English. Simply put, these two books are books that I bought many years ago to have in my shelf, thinking that one day I would like to read all the Norwegian classics without ever thinking about would I actually enjoy it. They've been stuck here for about 10 years and I've never considered reading them, so that's why they're leaving me today. Next we have a similar case, only not Norwegian, and it's Ivan Turgenev with Spring Torrents and Home of the Gentry. And I've already got Fathers and Sons in my shelf, and that's of course his most famous novel. If I like that one, I may buy one of these once again someday, but these are very readily available, not that hard to find at flea markets, for example, so it won't be difficult to part with them at this time. Also, when I read about these books, it said that Home of the Gentry is his least controversial book, and I thought, what's the point? Reading classics is sometimes a bit boring, but at least many of them are controversial for their time, and that's one reason to read them, so that put me off a bit. So that's also two books. If you think that this video has a common theme, you're right, it's about old men and old books. But now over to a couple of newer books, and it's two books from Henning Mankell, a Swedish author of crime fiction, Nordic noir type of thing. And none of these is the first one in the series, and I always like to start with the first one, so that's why they go today. Also, I've probably watched all the stories on television, because I binged watched nearly all of the things that Henning Mankell has done and then made for TV a couple of years ago, so there are probably too many spoilers out there for me, so that's why they go. The next book I can't pronounce, but I choose to call it Catriona by Robert Louis Stevenson. Of course, I've enjoyed Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and also Treasure Island, but this seems to be a sequel for some other book, and that's why it's going away. Over to an author I have appreciated earlier and not given up on. It's John Steinbeck, and I have 4 different books with me here today, because I also have East of Eden standing in my shelf, and I've actually started that novel 2 times before, and I read the first of 2 books, but then stopped each time. Maybe I'll try that one next year or something along those lines. Some of these are written in a really old Norwegian language, and that just puts me off a bit, makes me distracted and annoyed. And I know many people like old editions and they look cool, and many of them do, but I have to like reading them, and I think I like them better if I read them in more modern editions, and I have to finish East of Eden before I even start trying these ones again. You might say that when I get rid of books now, I'm less easily distracted when I look in the shelf. So when I've looked in my shelf now, I have 6 books from John Steinbeck, and I get a bit, not confused, but irritated. And if I only have East of Eden, maybe I'll just finish that one more quickly. So if you see any of these books today that you think that I will absolutely love and I will make a mistake of throwing away, please scream out in the comments and I'll reconsider some of them. Maybe 2 of them, if you're really pushy. Then we have The Memory of Eva Riker by Donald Stanwood. And this book ties a murder together with Titanic and Second World War. It just didn't give me the right vibes, and I have too many books. Over to a different theme, it's Keranes Konditori by Cora Sandel, also a famous Norwegian author, but I have her most famous book in my shelf, and thus this goes away. Once upon a time I liked these editions. It's big classics, and for a person that really wants to become an intellectual, big classics is a good thing. But today I'm relieving myself of 5 or 6 of these. And this one is Leo Tolstoy and Father Sergius. Only because I have Anna Karenina and War and Peace in my shelves, and that's alone 5 books, and I don't need more pressure. Now we're going to take a giant leap and we're going to travel into the world of sci-fi, and this is Ian M. Banks' Use of Weapons. This was recommended to me by a friend. I don't particularly enjoy sci-fi that much. Also, this is the 3rd one in the series, and this is a very beaten up copy. So that's why this is going away from me today. Sort of like the cover. The cover I find interesting. Also, I have to mention this was not the present, so I'm not throwing away the present. But I will read other sci-fi novels before I reconsider reading this one at some point. Traveling back to Norway again, it's Jørn Lier Horst with When It Grows Dark. I think this is number 11 in the series about William Wisting. And this author has written about 10 million different books in this series, and that's why I'll probably never start. Because I do like to think that I can finish the series at some point. Then over to a book I was forced to buy by the Norwegian public, and it's The Black Album by Hanif Kureishi. This one I bought 15 years ago to read in school, and I read some of it and got bored. Reading about this novel now, I really do understand why the Norwegian school system wanted us to read this novel, because it deals with growing up and being torn between forces in the society and all that. But I've had this standing in my shelf for a long time without even considered reading it, so I think it's time to let go. Last year I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and I enjoyed that novel. It was an easy read and a cozy read, and it was just a pleasant read. That's why I decided to buy several others of his books, including this one, The Possessions of Mr. Cave, but this is the by far least highly rated, or the lowest rated of the books I bought from Matt Haig. That's why it's leaving me today. Also, it's taller than every other book I have in my shelf currently, and that annoys me a bit, and that's also a reason. I think we're about halfway there, and I must say that this feels very nice. It really feels like I'm tidying up the place and getting rid of the unwanted noise in my reading life. Now I can focus on my struggle to choose amongst other books. I think I learned a new expression today, and it's dime novel, which I think this is. It's Night Train to Lisbon by Pascal Mercier. If that's the wrong expression, please comment below, but it's one of those novels you can buy in a convenience store. Many people will be very happy with the contents of this, but it won't go very deep into your soul and annoy you. And I think I have enough of the easily read novels in my shelf already. The next one is also up the same alley, and it's Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. You can actually see the resemblance with these two. It's pretty obvious that the same people have made these books. For the publisher, at least. And I tried looking up another expression in English just because the Norwegian one is so good. And the expression I found to describe this book was Bodies Ripper. I don't know which pronunciation is closest. But to describe these kinds of books in Norwegian, I'm going to directly translate the expression. It's housewife porn. You might say that the Norwegian expression is a bit more direct. But anyway, that's why. And with those words, I close that specific segment, I think. Because the next one is Tove Nilsen with Skyskraper Engler. And this is about growing up in Oslo, but I really don't like the cover, and I've read a couple of pages and it doesn't seem like something I would enjoy. Also, something I don't think I will enjoy is The Absolution by Yrsa Sigurdardottir. I recently read another one of her books, but I didn't enjoy that at all. There is something about horror that just doesn't speak to me at all, and I'm going to give this away to someone else that might enjoy it, and I can focus on what gives me happiness. Also, this is the third novel in the series, so I found it very easy to find excuses to make books go away this time. Much easier than last time. Mainly because I've actually read about these books instead of just going in and throwing them out, based purely on their looks. Except from this one. This I based purely on the looks. And it's going away. One of Norway's biggest treasures and an author I really enjoy is Amalie Skram. And this is Professor Hieronymus and the sequel. But I already have 2 big chunky books from Amalie Skram, so I think I will be focusing on those. Also, I would like prettier editions of these ones when that time comes. The next one doesn't need any introduction, and when I bought this book I knew it was a mistake, and I sort of told you guys when I made that video that this was going to be a mistake, and it's Maggie O'Farrell. And the book is called The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox. If you're unsure of why I'm letting this one go, you can check out my review of Hamlet that I made a while ago. The next one was also a mistake. It's Mikael Niemi with Falvan. I have read popular music from Vittula from the same author, and I really enjoyed that one. But this book is kind of similar to another one that he's written that is more popular, but I saw the yellow letters and thought this was the same book. It really wasn't, and this doesn't seem to be good at all compared to the other one, so I'm letting it go. Probably want to learn myself some synonyms for letting books go. And now I have to be completely honest with you and say that I bought HMS Ulysses by Alistair Maclean probably 6 years ago or something like that. But I thought it was Ulysses by James Joyce because I didn't know anything. And I thought I needed Ulysses in my shelf to brag to people. Or at least I thought maybe someday I will read it. That's still what I think, but I'm actually closer to reading it now than I was that time. So I bought this because I thought it was another book. So that's probably the most reasonable reason to let the book go. Reasonable reason. Yep. So over to the next one. And that's Mutiny on the Bounty by Charles Bernard Nordhoff and James Norman Hall. And I have enough books about ships that I'm struggling to get through or anxious about starting to read. That could be a reason to keep this one because it's short and the other ones are so big, but that's not what we are doing today. Then we have The House at Riverton by Kate Morton, and I absolutely have no idea why I bought this book. I think it may have to do with the pretty garden, because pretty gardens are pretty. Not going to read this anytime soon, so it's out. Bare Elvis by Maria Gripe. This is the 4th novel in the series. Then we have Insect Summer by Knut Fallbakke. This brilliantly conceived recreation of adolescence is as riveting as it is authentic. The tale of a young boy discovering primal urges amidst a heatwave was a bestseller in Scandinavia and has been made into a film and serialized for radio. I've got my fair share of primal urges through reading Karl Ove Knausgård lately, so that's why I wasn't thrilled to start reading this one. Over to another Norwegian classic, it's Kilden by Gabriel Scott. This has been standing in my shelf for probably 10 years. I've never considered reading it, and about now I felt like I didn't need another reason for getting rid of it. I should also mention that this is quite easy because all of these books have been thrifted or bought at the flea market, thus it hasn't been an enormous cost, and it just feels like I'm going to switch them out for newer books that I actually want to read, so it feels very satisfying. With the exact same reason for wanting to get rid of it as the last one, it's Wilhelm Moberg with Emigrants, only Swedish. Then we have The Chessman by Peter May. I do despise books only being black, so when I thought of making this video, this was one of my main targets. It didn't matter what rating it had or what it was about, it's just black standing in my shelf looking dull. Also, it's a crime fiction about illegal salmon fishing, and I feel like I've seen all of the crime fiction TV series about that concept, so it wasn't too hard. The next one is Herberg Wassmo, and this book is called The Stumme Rommet, and it's about a woman, and this is the second book in that series, but it's not about the most famous woman that Herberg Wassmo has written a book about, because that's Dina, which which you may have heard about earlier. So that made me want to read the books about Dina and not the woman in these books. So that was easy. Then it's Camille by Alexandre Dumas. I have read the Count of Monte Cristo, the Norwegian version, but that's about half of the original one. So I do want to read the original Count of Monte Cristo before I read others of his books. But otherwise, I don't have any good explanation for why I'm getting rid of this one now. Maybe it's because it doesn't have the title on the back. Next one up is a book I really want to read, but not this way. And it's The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. The reason why I'm getting rid of this is firstly because it's in Norwegian, and also it's part one of the first book, which annoys me. It annoys me too much. But this will be the excuse I want to buy the English version, and maybe I'll just do that soon so I get it out of my system. Also, as I've mentioned in probably several videos by now, I do want to read more fantasy this autumn. That's the spirit I'm in. And lastly for today, it's The Martyrs of Spain by Elizabeth Charles. I've had it for too long, and it's brown and dull and boring, and I need the space. I felt like that was the perfect ending to this video. All of this video is about the superficial and my feelings towards just looking at the books without thinking about reading them. It feels wrong getting rid of books, even though I know that some might get pleasure out of them, so I'll try to think about that. In Norway we have these old telephone kiosks where they nowadays put books often, and you can go and switch books. So what I'll do is that I'll bring twice as many books that I think I will find in a kiosk, and I'll put them there, and hopefully I'll find one or two books I would enjoy. But right now I hope that I don't find that many books, because I need to get rid of these and free up the shelf. And now it's time for me to just go to my shelf and clean up and see how much space I've got left, and then probably go out thrifting or buying books at the flea market, because that's also fun. And at least now I know which books I want to read, instead of just buying books that look old and intellectual. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!